Good morning, my lovelies. Dr. Minette Riordan here. This is Painting in Your PJs, live with Minette with like hair sticking up and everything. I was up super early this morning. I've actually already been in my studio for about an hour and a half having fun continuing to work on my some of the faces, drafts of faces for my Oracle deck that I started last month and am committed to getting finished up and still have a ways to go. And I actually recorded it, so I'll be posting that recording a little bit later today. Good morning, Deb. And this month, our focus here on Painting in Your PJs live with Minette is botanicals. And we've had some fun with various versions of botanicals, but today I had an idea for maybe making some of my own stencils and using either the stencil or the mask to create a mandala design. And the more that I play with this idea of botanicals, the more I kind of see the direction that I want to go, the things I want to love. And what I really love the most is the drawing and the line drawing. So I want to bring that in a little bit more here today. As always, thank you for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay. If you haven't yet subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click that little bell. It'll help you get notified when there's new content added to the channel or get notified when I do go live. And I'm super excited to be here with all of you this morning and work on this project. Painting in Your PJs is all about the creative journey and creative process and the process of self-discovery through art. And I'm always striving to continue to refine my creative voice and to look for ways to use my art as a mindful opportunity for personal growth. And what I'm most passionate about is really supporting women in midlife to use art and writing as tools to sort of get out of that murky, messy middle of midlife and really enjoy a midlife renaissance. And I have a photo here. I shared this photo last week when we were doing some drawing practice. These were some leaves that I picked up on a recent walk, but I'm also kind of maybe feeling drawn to some oak leaves or some different types of leaves this morning, but I may use this for some drawing inspiration. I have a couple of tags here that I'm going to use to create my own stencil and mask. We'll use both parts. I have an exacto knife, I have a self-cutting mat, and a pair of scissors. And I have my favorite circle drawing tool here, and I'm working in this, little small journal, and I'm kind of thinking that this would be a fun project to do on a bigger piece of paper. But for today, with our practice and play, I'm going to go ahead and use this smaller piece of paper as my guide. So I have my Helix circle drawing tool to help me create some guidelines for creating a symmetrical mandala design. So one of the things that I love about what I call sacred circles as opposed to mandalas is the symmetry and the understanding that these sacred designs are containers for both the whole and all of the individual parts, very much like our lives end up being both whole and lots of mini parts. I've been diving into the work of Richard Schwartz and internal family systems lately, which is popularly called parts work. And it is all about just, understanding that we're made up of so many different parts. And there are so many metaphors in nature for me about how there are so many different aspects of ourselves, and some of those aspects we treat with kindness, some we ignore, some, I love this because it has all the angles on here as well, some we ignore or avoid, and sometimes some of those parts end up in the driver's seat of who we are, and they can interfere with living as our true self or our whole self. All the parts have a role to play, they have a purpose to serve, and yet it's important to not let some of those parts take over. The inner critic is a great example of a part that can tend to get in the way. All right, so I got to do some math here. So this is 180, this is 90. So I'm thinking 145. Is that the middle? Maybe 140. All right, somewhere in here. We'll see when we pull the lines away if I got my math right. Math is not my strong suit. Well, we did it. So I love this little tool. It kind of gives me an idea of where I'm going with my design. Again, it's going to help me with some of the symmetry that I want to create here. So I've just drawn some simple mandala designs, just the very basic outline for what I call a sacred circle here on the page. It's a very busy week, and so I'm always looking for creative processes and practices that slow me down, that remind me to catch my breath, to really take some time. And this is one where I feel like maybe an affirmation along with this, I am present here and now, is one of the thoughts on my mind today. So I'm just going to maybe put that down over here on this other page. I am present here and now. I have all the time I need. I make time for what matters. So I often love to start my own creative practice. Good morning, Blanca. With a little bit of journaling, a little bit of thoughtfulness. Just capture some of those words that kind of help me stay more centered and aligned here. So I have my beginning of my sacred circle design. I have a couple of affirmations that I'm thinking about. And now I want to think about creating some leaf shapes. And I'm going to hand draw the shapes on a tag and cut them out. And I'm noticing that, the leaves can't be very big because the spaces on here aren't very large either. I can maybe get one longer shape around the outside edges. So I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4 different leaf shapes to start with and kind of see where we get to. And I was kind of looking at some of these designs. I love these long, skinny ones. I love a variation of this leafy one. And then I also love this, excuse me, nice round one here. I'm going to put myself on mute for just a second. I haven't done any talking yet this morning, so this is always starting at this little bit earlier time. I have to remember to pause and warm up my voice in the morning. Okay, so I'm looking, I kind of like this design, or maybe even a little bit more of an oak leaf shape. So I want something tall and slender. I want something a little more round. I kind of like this little sort of diamond flowy shape, and then I like this kind of leafy pattern. So my goal is to draw these on my tag, and I brought 2 just in case, but thinking about keeping them kind of small, knowing that I want them to sort of fit in my pattern here. And what I love about creating my own stencils, I get my own hand into my art. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I love doing things where I'm getting my own hand into my art. I also love that when we make our own stencils, they never come out perfect. They're always a little bit imperfect, and I just need the outline. I don't need any of the details. And I also love about making my own stencils that I end up with the stencil and the mask, right? And I'll show you more about what I mean, and maybe we'll use these in a few different ways on our journey. But I'd love to hear, how's everybody doing this morning? What are you working on? Always so appreciative when you join me live in the mornings. So there we have our kind of nice long skinny one, and I'm just gonna pull that back over And see, that feels way too big. So I'm going to have to make this one smaller to just even have it fit on my page. So I'm being mindful of that. So these are going to need to be even smaller than I was thinking. So we're just going to come in and shorten this up quite a bit. That'll be better. And then I want to do a small one of this round one. And remember when we were practicing, awesome. I love that you're working on your mythical makeover journal. Day 2 clue is out. And this one is definitely too big for my design. But remember when we were practicing our drawing with our tracing paper, I've got almost an oval here, but a pretty round oval. It's almost like that it's round, but it's a little flat on the bottom. So I'm going to come in and just start by getting the shape of that leaf. It's so much easier to draw these bigger than it is to draw them smaller. And actually, I don't want those too close together. And we'll get that bottom little dip in there and just a little bit of a stem. And then I'm going to come in and add in these nice little shapes in here. Give our leaf a little bit of texture. This is going to be a little tricky to cut out. It definitely won't end up being perfect, but it'll give us the sense of that leaf design. Just watching today, it's early for you, my friend. And then, so we have this one, we have this one. I want something that's maybe more a little bit this shape. And so if you remember when we were doing our drawing practice, this one ended up being kind of a diamond shape, kind of a funny, the top of the diamond was bigger than the bottom. And then it kind of had that long and the more I draw these, good morning, Yvonne, the more I draw these, my early birds, my West Coast early birds, love having you guys here. And the more that that lead on that pencil is broken. The more times I spend drawing the same shapes, the better I get at them, right? The more time I spend drawing them, the better I get at them. And then I'm going to do a really simple variation of this one so that I can cut that out. Again, you know, it can't be too big or too long. So I'm going to start with a pretty big stem for this one. I probably don't want it to be any taller than that. My tendency is to make these really tall, but if we come back to my page size over here, right, I have to be mindful of the size of my circles that I drew. And these are nice and pointy on the edges. So I want to come in and I'm just going to put a few of these up and down the edges. Again, we're going to keep this one pretty simple. To get my pencil sharpener and fix up my pencil here. And I do kind of like these little ones on the bottom, sort of, you know, almost peeking up in a different direction. Different pencil. It's always handy to have multiple sharpened pencils around the studio. All right, and then I'm going to start with an exacto knife and then probably clean them up a little bit. So I'm looking at that one and thinking that one feels too big, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it out because I can always fuss with the shapes a little bit more once they cut out. So I have an exacto knife, I have a self-healing cutting mat. These things are amazing. And I did put a brand new blade in here finally to make it a little bit easier to cut out. I am not very good with an exacto knife, so this will be an adventure, and I just need to be patient with myself and maybe not try to cut all the way through on the first try. I did actually cut all the way through on the first try. And the reason I'm using an exacto knife, it would be easier to do this with a pair of scissors for sure. But the reason that I'm doing it this way is because when I pop this out of here, I got a little cleanup to do there. Get that tip out of there, come on out. Is that I can use both parts of my stencil and the mask, and these masks are really fun to play with. And also because I'm drawing this sacred circle design, I may decide it's easier to use the masks instead of the stencils. I love, Blanca, that you're noticing a difference in your art from just all of the practice. Fantastic. You have been, like me, making lots of art this year. I'm also noticing my own art getting so much better because of all the drawing practice. And at the very beginning of the video, I showed I'm still making process on my faces. Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a fun project here, Yvonne. And I recorded myself. I got 3 more faces started this morning, and I've done a couple of more since I finished those videos. And tags are great for creating our own stencils. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. And I'm looking at this one thinking I'm going to simplify this to make it easier to cut out and maybe make a little bit more of just a round leaf without all the zigzaggies, because we have zigzaggies here. I don't need 2 images with zigzaggies. Official term, those zigzaggy edges. But tags, when you make your own stencils out of tags, they last a really long time. They don't last forever, obviously. They're not as durable as the Mylar plastic ones, but they're also not plastic. They're paper. They're super, super recyclable. And again, they're my own design. So no one else is going to draw a leaf like me, even if people are drawing the exact same leaf design. It's always going to look a little bit different. So I get my own hand, my own voice into my art as much as possible. All right, so this one's going to end up being a little bit tricky in here. And cutting stencils, doing this kind of cutting, fussy cutting, is a mindful activity for me. So when you think about your art, think about the different parts of the process that are relaxing and calming versus parts that might be a little more anxiety inducing. Like drawing faces, I wouldn't consider to be a mindful practice for me. Well, the drawing actually of them in the practice in my journal is fine, but I have so much more judgment around that. So painting mixed media backgrounds is a very mindful activity for me personally. Coloring sacred circles like we do in our sacred circles membership is a very relaxing activity for me. Okay, that one was a little bit trickier to get out of there because of all those edges, but we made it work. All right. And then I can always use a pair of scissors to clean up some of the details. I'm so excited too, Yvonne. It's coming together. I'm looking forward to making some time to do the writing and really explore the meanings of the cards. And I'm committed to just sort of getting all the artwork done first and working in that direction. Excuse me. But I still need to get a few of those done. All right, those are super cute. I love the way they're coming out. And when I use this as a tool for drawing, right, I don't have to stick exactly to the edges, and it'll help me see the shape of that and maybe what needs to get fixed up, right? But it's pretty close to the original, so I'm pretty happy with that. So this one I'm thinking I'm going to just have this be a little bit, I'm going to round this up a little bit. And I actually think it needs to just still be a little bit smaller. Now it looks kind of like an apple instead of a leaf. Actually, maybe we'll make it a little more heart-shaped. A little bit more like an aspen leaf. And we'll see what we think about that. Again, I'm feeling, as I'm looking at my design, I'm thinking, okay, this is still too big, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it out because I can always trim it a little bit more once I have the actual leaf in hand. And I also like having these little pieces, so I could hand draw the entire mandala design, right? The sacred circle design. I could simply draw all of these leaves. But when I thought about the symmetrical nature of a sacred circle design, I wanted each of the leaves to be the same, which felt a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging to draw. And I realized I just cut right over the stem. So let's see if we can, I didn't cut all the way through there, so maybe we can save that. And if you make a mistake, don't worry, that's what tape is for. And I went back and looked at my oil pastels. Yep, I did cut that stem out, so I'm going to have to either tape or just hand draw that stencil back, or the stem back on, which is fine. But I want all the designs to be the same for each of my leaf patterns. And so using the stencil or the mask is going to allow me to create more of that symmetry that I'm looking for in my design. And I started to say, I also went back and looked at my oil pastel designs from last night and was pleased with them. When I finished up last night, I wasn't as pleased with them. And all I needed was some distance from them, especially this one. I've got some paper taped over the top to protect it because I haven't sealed them yet. But I really loved how the reflecting pond came out. It surprised me when I came down here this morning and saw this. I had left it sitting on my table with my journal open. So I love the opportunity to walk away and then come back later and look at how things turned out and catch yourself by surprise. So if you're feeling judgmental in the moment, walk away from your art and give it a little time to breathe. Sorry, I'm going to take some water. Yvonne, I love that. Yvonne said, so much of my arting calms me and my anxieties. And my hubby sees I'm overthinking. He says, go relax, babe, and do some art. Smart man. Smart man. So I can come in and start to play with my design, which if I were just drawing this, I wouldn't be able to do as easily either. So this way I can see the size of things. I can see where the placement of things can go, where I might end up running off of the page. So this is a great, just sort of simple design element to help us create something. And if I were out in nature, so I love creating these sacred circle or mandala designs in nature with actual leaves and stones and pine cones and anything else that I can find. And this allows me, just like it does when I'm outside, to see the placement of things a little bit better. So it's kind of a fun way to really focus in on the design first, where normally I would just dive in and start drawing, and I wanted just a little bit more intentionality today. And I'm looking at this going, I know I want it to be a little bit smaller and I want it to be very symmetrical. When you look at an aspen leaf, I have to pick some off the tree in my front yard and bring them into the studio. So I'm going to fold that in half, just like I'm cutting, like I would if I were cutting out a heart shape. And I just want to make this a bit smaller. And now I'll have that bigger stencil and this little bit smaller design. So it's a little bit smaller. I love that it's a heart, but all I have to do is add a little bit of stem and then we're going to have a leaf. So we have three of our shapes so far, and I'm probably going to integrate some other patterns into this as well. We'll see where we get to. And I have a call right at 8 a.m. this morning also, so I will probably end a little bit early today. So if I don't finish this project, I will probably finish it on Monday or Tuesday morning when we're live again. So this one I'm going to be really mindful. I'm going to really focus, take my time cutting out these shapes. The cutting on an angle, getting those nice round edges is the tricky part for me. I might want to round that up a little bit. So this one's going to take maybe a couple of tries to get through. Make sure we get the corners in the right place. And I should know by now, you should never cut towards yourself with the stencil, cut or with the exacto knife, cut away from yourself. All right. And I never want to press so hard that I'm wearing my hand out. I'd rather go over that cut more than once. And if I'm pressing hard, too hard, just like when I'm drawing, I don't have as much control either. So again, it's okay to kind of take your time with this. This is the trickiest one to cut out. And I'm looking at it going, I think I want that stem to be a little bit narrower. So I'm just going to kind of make that little bit of correction with my exacto knife there. All right, this one's definitely going to be a little bit fussy, but we'll get there. And if I end up not liking the mask, I always have the stencil to work with, right? So that's the other part about this that I like is we have that the mask, the actual cutout that we can use, and we have the stencil. And because I love leaves so much, I totally see myself using this stencil in other work. This is one of those parts where it'd probably be good to be able to fast forward, and you wouldn't have to sit here and watch me cut the whole thing out. Okay, got a good start. Let's get these. Trying to figure out where I didn't get that cut all the way across, maybe there. There we go. Okay, so this is definitely going to be a little bit messy here, and I'm going to be okay with the messy. And notice how I'm kind of picking it up so I can see, where the stuck places are, and then I can just come back in here with that knife and push past some of those stuck places to get it cut out completely. So this is the trickiest one. You can see it was taking definitely a lot longer than some of those simple shapes, but it's going to be worth it to have this fun shape in the end. And I have a variety of these hand-cut stencils in my studio with different shapes and designs and patterns that I love using in my own work. All right, I did it. So there we have our stencil designs that I can use for other mixed media art. And I have my sweet little masks, and I'm going to put my lid on that. I'm going to come in with my scissors and cut this up. 100% Deb, bringing calm to the mind, the brain that is firing too fast. Yep, that's a great definition of what it feels like to be in overwhelm, like our brain is firing too fast and it can't settle on one thing. And art is definitely a powerful antidote to that. And I'm just cleaning up these edges a little bit where I have some little bits of cardstock so that when I draw around it, I kind of have some clean lines. So I have 4 patterns. I think I'm going to mix in some orbs or circles so that I have a 5th pattern here. But now I'm going to come back with my pencil. And how can I lose my pencil on my table? Like, it's got to be right in front of me. The broken one is right in front of me. There it is. And I want to just start looking at some of these designs. Like this one's feeling like it's going to be in the center and maybe some at the edges. And then I want some version of these around the outside edges. So I'm going to set this one aside for a second. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to start from this inner circle here. And again, it's not going to quite fit on my page, and I'm okay with that. I think I mentioned at the very beginning that this feels like a project that I would want to do on a larger piece of paper. And yet I'm going to do this practice one here in my journal. And then if I love doing it, I can always go in and do it again. It also made me make sure that I measured the size of the leaves. Makes me notice, where do things need to be smaller or changed up. I used my Helix drawing tool to get the circles drawn, but a lot of times I'll use things like, especially if I'm traveling, like I might use the bottom of this candle, I might use the bottom of a bottle or the lid of a bottle to draw those circles. So look around the house, paint lids, or glass jar lids, all things, when you're in your kitchen and you start to throw away bottles and containers, hang on to the lids. They're very, very useful tools in your studio. And my thought with this one is that I want to have some fun with some line and pattern drawing, maybe adding some zentangle patterns to my design here, and maybe some watercolor paint or some colored pencils. So this is definitely going to be one of those projects that I can have a lot of fun with that will last longer than just this one session. Oh, thank you. Yes, Blanca, I did. I mentioned that when I came back this morning and looked at what I created, I was still really happy with this one, but I wasn't super happy when I walked away last night with the landscape. But I left it sitting in my studio, and when I came in this morning and looked at it, I was super, super happy with it, and I realized I didn't do what I said to do, which is to date these. So this was September 2023, oil pastels, and this is the pond at Meadowbrook Nature Area. This is literally a 10-minute walk from my house. And one of my favorite places to walk in the morning. And we have muskrats. I've only seen them maybe once early this year. This is where I saw owls and herons and varieties of ducks. There was one duck out there yesterday morning, but it was so, so beautiful. And I can also see where I want to come in and seal this one with either some fixative or the matte medium so I can come back in and bring even a full a few more highlights to it. So yeah, it's amazing how just letting an image rest changes our perspective dramatically. Okay, so I'm really wanting to sort of play with this one and layer it. And if I do that, where am I going to put this one? I'm kind of liking maybe this one out at the edges and this one at the inside. All right, definitely thinking this would be really fun to do on a bigger sheet of paper, but this will be good practice. I kind of like just letting it run off the edge of the paper. I love putting the different dividing lines between things so I have places to measure and decide and remind me where I'm going with my design. It helps with that symmetry, and you can have symmetry without perfection. So this is mostly symmetrical. And so I didn't quite get my measurements right here. I have more space here than here. So I didn't quite get that one right. And so even though I'm not a perfectionist, I do want this one to be in the right place. And so that means, is this one off a little bit too? All right, it is. I'm going to leave it. Lesson learned. Get better at doing the math part. So this is going to mean that this one is going to fit a little bit differently in here. And I'm kind of looking at this going, do I want to add watercolor first and then tingle over it? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just being in curiosity about the process and being mindful of where is it taking me. I always ask my art, what do you want from me next? What's the next direction? What's the next piece and place to go here? And then I think I want these beauties to kind of come in from the center here, and they're going to overlap that other leaf a little bit, which I like. And actually, you know what? This one is going to be a little harder, so I think this one's actually going to be easier with the stencil, but I can see it better this way. So I'm going to come in and draw in the top, and then I'm going to use the stencil, which will make it just a little bit faster to keep it in place, because this one is wiggly wobbly, and so it's a little bit harder to hold and draw around. So I think that that stencil will be a little bit easier. But I just want to mark where these lines are going to go so I know where to start. And I should be able to see that pencil and just line that up right there. Close enough. Much easier. So noticing, what do you like? Do you like using the stencil and drawing inside the stencil? Do you like drawing around the mask? You'll get a little bit different size and shape. They aren't exactly the same. So that went much faster and much easier. So love laying that down. Come over here, line that one up. When I watch people draw really intricate, detail-oriented mandala designs, there's a couple of amazing artists that I follow on Instagram, and they put a lot of work into drawing those guidelines ahead of time in order to really focus in on that symmetry. And I'm not that patient most of the time. And I can see where I've missed a few of those lines. That's fine. I can easily go back in and touch those up. This is one of those, like, just tracing around the stencil, just pause, catch my breath. Okay, let's get this one. Well, that's my center line. I must have not quite got that one lined up quite right. Let's try that one again. So I don't know if you guys are enjoying watching this, but I have to tell you, like, this is one of those fussy, detail-oriented things I'm really enjoying. Good morning, Tori. Good morning, good morning. I'm having a blast. So I hand drew leaves and cut some stencils, and I'm using them to create a sacred circle design. And I'm thinking this sweet little aspen leaf is going to go in the center somehow, but we'll see where we get to. Mostly get that one lined up there. And I used the mask and the stencil to help me get these drawings or these little leaf shapes lined up here. Get them to fit on the page. So if I do this again, I want to do it on a bigger piece of paper, and I want to have even more space for more of the designs. Look how much bigger the mask lines are than the stencil lines. It's kind of fascinating. All right, so I'm looking at it, and now I'm wanting to maybe get rid of some of my pencil lines to kind of see where I'm gonna go next with some of my patterns to fill in. I'm kind of liking this idea of sort of layering these different patterns. So I'm thinking this one's actually going to get layered over the top, and it's one of the things I love about drawing is that being able to layer them. So before I start to clean up some of my lines, I'm going to go ahead and layer this one in here, and we're going to give it a stem. And I worked outside in this one, which is interesting because normally if I were to hand draw a sacred circle design or a zendangle with zentangle patterns, then I would definitely start from the center and work my way out. But the way that I lined up the leaf patterns, it made more sense to draw from the outside in. So again, so much of this is about noticing your own practice and process. And once I come in with black lines in all of this, it'll also be able to see all those designs a little bit better, make some decisions about, what's going where and what's going to go between, and layer over. I'm not sure what's going to go in the center yet, but I'm thinking about some of the other flower patterns and designs that I've been working in this week, and maybe bringing in a simple sort of daisy pattern design. And we'll just put that in there and see. You can tell the patterns that you draw a lot, and you kind of get that sort of muscle memory happening. It goes much faster and easier to draw. Yvonne, I love all your fun faces and emojis. You're making me smile. All right, so this feels really good. I'm going to go ahead and add black lines over the top of everything, and that will and then erase the pencil so I can see what's there, and that will be the last step for today, and then I will continue to work on this particular design next Tuesday when I'm back. This won't be one that I finish. Or if I get a little too excited and I finish it over the weekend, um, I will show what I did next week. But I also have a busy weekend ahead. Okay, let me see what I have sitting here. We've got a Micron PN. So I'm not looking for details, but I'm looking to see where are my layers, what needs to get drawn behind, and I'm feeling like I want this pretty little aspen leaf to be in the front. So as we move out from the center out, that things are interestingly layered from the center going outwards. And again, I messed up a little bit on my spacing here, and by the time I'm done with it, none of that will show. But I would be more mindful of that. And if I drew it bigger, I might actually add in even a few more guidelines. I don't know. Okay, I do like the daisy in the center. And I think one of the things I've loved about this year so far is going back and like just realizing how much art I've created. So committing to doing painting in your PJs, I have made a lot of art. It's afforded me so much practice and helped me grow as an artist, right? And so, oh, this one and this one are at a different line than these two. So I brought those closer in. So do I want to change that? See, I didn't see that until I came back with the black lines. And I'm going to leave them because they match. So we'll see where we get to. Okay, we got the stem of that one going up off the page there. I think my pen here is dying a little bit. I have another one. Let's try this one. Oh, that's better. And as I come in with the black, I'm, more or less following those lines. Again, not trying to get it perfect. But I can also use the pen to fix lines or change shapes a little bit of things. I want things to be a little more round. It's a great opportunity to just let the pen do some of that work. And I love adding the black ink because all of a sudden I can see the design really taking shape in a new way. That when it starts to get messy with the pencil, it gets hard to see. This is just like when I was painting the faces and I would add the black lines to the faces. Slowing down, taking my time, not trying to talk while I'm doing this so I get the lines where I want them. Turning my page just like I do with my zentangle practice to make things easier to draw. This would be pretty with just watercolor and some layered different greens in it. But I am also excited to come in and add some line work and pattern work to these leaves. Remembering to stop at the line, right, where I want this one to be in the front here. So I don't want to draw the other edges of that leaf there. Just paying attention to where the edges are. And I like the combination of leaves that I chose, right? The one with the jagged edges, the one that's long and narrow, the one that's small leaves, and then our sort of aspen leaf heart-shaped pattern feels like a nice variety of shapes of leaves that creates visual interest in my piece is by having a nice variety of shapes. Diego's over here having a whole conversation with himself. Dude, be quiet. He's entertaining himself. I don't know what he's doing. He pushes around on the floor all the things that Georgia likes to knock off of the art table. Oh, I see. I only messed up one of them. So these were all at this line, but this one went all the way in to that line. Hmm. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another leaf, a little small leaf, tuck that in there, and bring those all the way in. Everything is fixable. All right, there, that works a little bit better, so it's not quite as long as the other ones, but that's okay. It's all right. What was the name of the circle tool? It was from a compass set. Now you're shopping and watching. I love it. It's called a helix drawing tool, a helix, Helix, and they usually do have them on Amazon. I've seen them at Jerry's Artorama sometimes. Do we know why the earth is not flat? Are you trying to distract me? You're hilarious. A helix, Helix. Much easier for me to use than a compass. Some people are very adept at compasses. I just really struggle with them. So I have all kinds of other tools that I use. Look how pretty. Oh, I'm so excited about this one. This is going to come together really beautifully. All right. And I'm not going to be able probably to get rid of all those pencil lines. It's a decent eraser, but we're going to do our best. By the time I add pattern and color to this, the lines will all disappear. It's going to be hard maybe to not want to keep working on this one, but maybe I'll work on a bigger one. And this one is definitely begging for some watercolor. All right, so now I can kind of, erasers make so much mess. Have a better sense of where the patterns and designs are and where the gaps are, where I might want to come in and add a few other patterns. Like I'm feeling like, maybe a few little wispy bits, and it doesn't need a lot. I am thinking that I'm probably going to fill this inner circle here. I'm going to get a smaller microns. This is an 01, and come in with some tipple in here to kind of fill the center of the circle. Yep, I'm going to like that, and I'm going to pop off for now because I have a call in about 3 minutes, so I need to shift gears here a little bit, but I love where this is going. And now I can sit with the design and decide where I want to go next with this piece. I'm definitely going to take a picture of the black and white version as it is because I can always print it out and test different things and try different things. But what a fun experiment this was, and I can't wait to see where we decide to go next with it. So have a beautiful rest of your day, a phenomenal weekend. I can't believe that it is Thursday already, and I will see you all next Tuesday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Bye bye, everybody.